The scent-masking herbs were burning through her skin. Talia could feel them blistering against her collarbone. The paste her half-sister had smeared there just an hour ago now turning hot, almost acidic. She wanted to claw at it, to rip the borrowed emerald gown off her body and run back to the servants' quarters where she belonged. But she couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything but sit perfectly still in the high row, 3 seats away from the empty obsidian throne that belonged to the most dangerous shifter alive. The Alpha King hadn't even entered the ballroom yet, and already, the air felt like it was choking her. Before we dive deeper into Talia's impossible night, where are you watching from? Let me know in the comment. Now, back to Talia, sitting where she absolutely does not belong. The moonbound gala was a spectacle of cruelty disguised as elegance. Crystal chandeliers dripped from vaulted ceilings like frozen tears. The marble floors gleamed so brightly they reflected the faces of the purebloods who glided across them, wolves whose scents were so potent, so present, that the air itself seemed to bend around them. Cedar and frost. Midnight jasmine and thunder. Dominant, intoxicating, real. Talia smelled like nothing. Well, almost nothing. If someone got close enough, which they never did, they might catch the faintest whisper of wild roses and ash. But in a world where your scent was your identity, your power, your worth, being a half-wolf with a dormant inner beast meant you were a ghost. A mistake. A stain on the bloodline. She shouldn't have been here at all. Remember, her half-sister Tina had hissed just before shoving Talia into the carriage. You sit. You don't speak. You don't remove the veil. And when they call my name for the presentation, you stand, you bow, and you sit back down. That's all you do. Tina was a full-blood, beautiful, sharp-tongued, and currently very pregnant with a married councilman's child, a scandal that would destroy her family's standing if it came to light during the mating ceremony. So Talia, the invisible half-sister, the one no one looked at twice, was the perfect decoy. Just sit in Tina's seat. Wear Tina's dress. Hide beneath Tina's veil and the scent-masking herbs. What could go wrong? Everything, as it turned out. Because the herbs weren't just hot now, they were burning. And the ceremony hadn't even started. Talia's fingers trembled as she gripped the edge of her chair. Around her, the high row was filled with the elite daughters of alphas, sisters of betas, women whose wolves were so strong they practically radiated dominance. They smelled like power, like they belonged here. Talia wanted to vomit. Did you hear? The woman to her left whispered to her companion, her voice dripping with excitement. They say the king hasn't even looked at a female in over 50 years. Not since the last gala. 200 years without a mate, the other woman breathed. Can you imagine? A king that powerful, that old, and still so empty. So empty. The term for an alpha who had never found their fated mate, whose bond had never snapped into place. For someone like Zarek Vane, the alpha king of Valerius, the wolf who had conquered 3 kingdoms and executed his own father for weakness, being soul empty wasn't just rare. It was dangerous. I heard he's going feral, the first woman continued. That's why he's hosting the ceremony again. He needs to find his mate before the madness takes him completely. Talia's stomach twisted. She'd heard the stories. Every servant in the kingdom had. Zarek Vane was a legend carved from violence and ice. He was 7 feet of lethal grace, with eyes that glowed molten gold when his wolf surfaced and a reputation for ripping out the throats of anyone who challenged him. He didn't just rule Valerius, he owned it, body and soul. And if the rumors were true, he was unraveling. A soul-empty alpha who lived too long without a mate would eventually lose himself to the beast. The wolf would take over, turning the shifter into something monstrous, something that knew only hunger and rage. Talia shuddered beneath her veil. Why am I here? Why did I agree to this? But she knew why. Because Tina had begged. Because their father, who had never acknowledged Talia as more than a servant, had ordered it. Because this was what half-wolves did. They obeyed. They stayed invisible. They survived. The herbs on her skin flared hotter, and Talia bit down on her lip to keep from gasping. Something was wrong. The paste wasn't supposed to burn like this. It was meant to mask her scent, to make her blend into the background, but instead it felt like her skin was on fire. The great double doors at the end of the ballroom exploded open. Silence crashed over the room like a wave. And then he walked in. Zarek Vane moved like death in a perfectly tailored suit. He was massive, taller than any wolf Talia had ever seen, his shoulders broad enough to block out the light from the chandeliers. His hair was black as a starless sky, falling just past his collar and his face. God, his face was beautiful in the way a blade was beautiful. Sharp. Cold. Designed to cut. But it was his eyes that made every woman in the room hold her breath. Molten gold. Burning. Ancient. Predator eyes. He didn't smile. Didn't acknowledge the hundreds of wolves bowing as he passed. He simply walked, his stride controlled and deliberate, his gaze sweeping over the crowd with the disinterest of a king who had seen this all before. Talia's heart slammed against her ribs. Don't look at me. Don't look at me. Don't. The herbs on her skin ignited. Not metaphorically. Actually ignited. Talia felt the paste blister and crack, the scent-masking magic reacting to something in the air, something wrong, and suddenly the faint, barely there whisper of wild roses and cold ash that usually clung to her skin erupted into the room like a shockwave. She gasped, her hands flying to her collarbone, trying to smother it, trying to stop it, but it was too late. The scent filled the ballroom. And Zarek Vane stopped walking. The Alpha King froze mid-step, his entire body going rigid. The room held its breath. Slowly, so slowly it felt like the world was tilting, Zarek's head turned. His burning gold eyes swept over the high row, over the elite daughters and sisters who were practically trembling with hope, and then they locked on Talia. Even through the veil. Even through the emerald silk and the shadows. He saw her. No. Worse. He scented her. No, Talia whispered, her voice breaking. No. Zarek moved. One moment he was 15 feet away. The next he was there, towering over her, his presence so overwhelming that the women on either side of her scrambled backward, their chairs screeching against the marble. Talia couldn't move. Couldn't think. She could only stare up at the Alpha King as he leaned down, his face inches from hers, his nostrils flaring as he drew in her scent like a wolf starved. The entire ballroom watched in frozen horror. And then Zarek Vane, the king who had ignored every pureblood female for 2 centuries, dropped to one knee. His hand shot out, claws extending, and he gripped the edge of her veil. You, he rasped, his voice rough, shaking, barely human. What are you? Talia's breath came in short, panicked gasps. I'm no one. I'm... Liar. He ripped the veil away. The room gasped. Because beneath the silk and the borrowed gown wasn't Tina, the full-blood daughter of a high-ranking family. It was Talia. The half-wolf. The nothing. And the Alpha King was staring at her like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking for 200 years. Wild roses, Zarek whispered, his voice cracking. And cold ash. His hand trembled as his claws grazed her jawline, forcing her to meet his burning gaze. I have waited 200 years for a scent that didn't make me sick, he said, his words barely audible over the pounding of her heart. And I find it, on a girl who doesn't even have a pack? Talia's voice was a ghost of a sound. I am a mistake, Your Majesty. Let me go before they see. Let you go. His eyes flashed, and for a moment, Talia saw the wolf beneath the man, wild, feral, desperate. I would burn this kingdom to the ground, Zarek Vane growled, before I let you walk out of this room. The silence in the ballroom was suffocating. Talia could feel 1,000 eyes burning into her skin, could hear the whispers starting to ripple through the crowd like poison spreading through water. Half-wolf. Servant. Abomination. The words weren't spoken aloud yet, but she could taste them in the air, sharp and bitter. And still, Zarek Vane knelt before her, his massive frame trembling with a restraint that looked like it was tearing him apart from the inside. "Your Majesty," a voice cut through the silence, cold, sharp, dripping with disdain. "You cannot be serious." Talia's gaze flickered past Zarek to the man who had spoken. He was tall, silver-haired, with eyes like chips of ice. Lord Castellan, the High Chancellor. The man who had served 3 generations of Alpha Kings and who, according to kitchen gossip, considered himself the true power behind the throne. Zarek didn't turn, didn't acknowledge him. His eyes remained locked on Talia, searching her face like he was trying to memorize every detail. "Remove yourself from my line of sight, Castellan," Zarek said quietly, "before I remove your tongue from your mouth." The Chancellor paled but didn't back down. "The law is clear, my king. A royal bond with a half-wolf is forbidden. It has been since the Purge of. I know the law." Zarek's voice dropped to a growl that vibrated through Talia's chest. "I wrote half of them. Then you know what this means." Castellan gestured toward Talia with barely concealed disgust. "This creature cannot be your mate. The council will never allow." Zarek moved so fast that Talia didn't even see it. One moment he was kneeling. The next, he had Castellan by the throat, lifted 3 feet off the ground, the Chancellor's polished shoes kicking uselessly at the air. "Say creature again," Zarek whispered, his voice lethal. "I want to see if you can do it without a larynx." "Zarek." Another voice, female, commanding. A woman strode forward from the crowd, her presence parting the sea of nobles like a blade. She was stunning, with silver-white hair that fell to her waist and eyes the color of winter storms. Lady Kimberly, the Queen's sister. The woman who had run the kingdom while Zarek hunted his enemies across the continent. "Put him down," Kimberly said, her tone leaving no room for argument. "Now." For a moment, Talia thought Zarek would ignore her. His claws were already piercing Castellan's skin, drawing thin lines of blood. But then, slowly, reluctantly, he released his grip. The Chancellor crumpled to the floor, gasping. Kimberly's gaze shifted to Talia, and something flickered in those storm-gray eyes. Not disgust. Curiosity. "What is your name, girl?" Talia's throat was so tight she could barely speak. "Talia, my lady. Talia Zachary." "Zachary?" Kimberly's brow arched. "I know that name. Your father is Reuben Zachary, is he not?" "The councilman." Shame burned through Talia's chest. He doesn't claim me, my lady. I'm his," she hesitated. "I'm a mistake. My mother was human. I have no wolf." The whispers exploded around her, louder now, vicious. "No wolf. Half-breed. Worthless." But Kimberly didn't flinch. Instead, she stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. "You have no wolf?" Then how she stopped, her gaze dropping to Talia's collarbone where the herbs had burned away, leaving red marks on her skin. "What did you use to mask your scent?" "Nightshade paste," Talia whispered. "Mixed with silver root and blathorn," Kimberly finished, her voice sharp. She spun toward Zarek. "Do you understand what happened here?" Zarek's expression was unreadable. "Tell me." "Blathorn reacts to alpha pheromones," Kimberly said. "When exposed to a powerful enough alpha, especially one on the verge of feral madness, it doesn't mask a scent. It amplifies it." She looked back at Talia. "Your scent isn't naturally this strong, is it?" Talia shook her head mutely. "So we don't even know," Castellan rasped from the floor, clutching his throat, "if she's truly his mate. This could be a trick. A trap." "It's not a trick." Zarek's voice was absolute. "I know my mate's scent. You've been so empty for 200 years, Castellan spat. You're half mad already. How can you trust?" "Because I feel it." Zarek roared, and the entire ballroom shook. His eyes blazed molten gold, his wolf rising so close to the surface that Talia could see the beast moving beneath his skin. "I feel the bond screaming in my chest. I feel my wolf clawing to claim her. I feel," his voice cracked. "I feel whole for the first time in 2 centuries. The raw honesty in his words stunned the room into silence. Talia stared at him, her heart breaking. Because she felt it too. Not the bond, she had no wolf to feel a bond, but something else. Something warm and terrifying unfurling in her chest, reaching toward him like a flower turning toward the sun. No, she thought desperately. This can't be real. I can't be his mate. I'm nothing. The law states, Kimberly said carefully, that a half-wolf cannot sit on the throne. But it says nothing about a king choosing to step down. Zarek's head snapped toward her. What? If you abdicate, Kimberly continued, and name an heir, you would be free to claim your mate without breaking the law. Abdicate? Zarek's laugh was bitter. You think I spent 200 years building this kingdom just to hand it over to save her life, Kimberly interrupted. Because if you claim a half-wolf as queen, the council will invoke the purge law. And that law demands execution. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Execution. Talia's blood turned to ice. They wouldn't dare, Zarek growled. They would, Castellan said, climbing to his feet. The law is sacred. If you claim her, the council has no choice. Zarek turned to Talia, and the look in his eyes made her chest ache. Then I'll kill the council. And start a civil war, Kimberly said quietly. Is that what you want? To burn the kingdom for a girl you met 5 minutes ago? Yes, Talia thought she saw in his eyes. Yes, I would. But she couldn't let him. Let me go, Talia whispered. She forced herself to stand, her legs shaking. Please, Your Majesty. I don't even have a wolf. This bond, it can't be real. Just let me. No. Your Majesty. I said no. Zarek stood, and suddenly he was towering over her again, his presence overwhelming. You're mine, Talia Zachary. The moment I scented you, you became mine. And I protect what's mine. Even if it destroys you, she whispered. His smile was brutal. Beautiful. Especially then. Zarek gave Talia exactly 3 seconds to process his declaration before chaos erupted. This is madness. Lord Castellan's voice cracked through the ballroom like a whip. My king, I beg you to reconsider. The girl is mine. Zarek's wolf flashed in his eyes, turning them fully gold. Say otherwise again, Castellan, and I'll make sure you never speak another word. But the Chancellor wasn't alone anymore. 3 more council members pushed through the crowd, Lord Varon, Lady Sinclair, and the ancient Lord James, whose family had served the crown for 5 generations. They formed a wall between Zarek and the rest of the ballroom, their expressions grave. Your Majesty, Lord James said, his voice surprisingly gentle. We understand that the bond feels real, but you must see reason. The purge law exists for a purpose. Half-wolves are unstable. Their human blood weakens the pack, dilutes the... I don't care about bloodlines, Zarek snarled. But the kingdom does, Lady Sinclair interjected. Her sharp features were twisted with concern, or perhaps calculation. If you claim this girl as your mate, you'll be declaring war on every tradition we hold sacred. The Pax will revolt. The outer territories will see it as weakness. Everything you've built will. Let it burn. Talia's breath caught. She'd heard the words before, but hearing them again said with such absolute conviction made her knees weak. Zarek. Kimberly stepped forward, placing herself between the king and his council. Give us one night. Let the council convene. Let us find a solution that doesn't end in bloodshed. There is no solution, Zarek said flatly. She's my mate. I'm claiming her. Anyone who tries to stop me will die. Then you'll be killing half your kingdom, Kimberly shot back. Is that what you want? For the first time, Zarek hesitated. His jaw clenched, the muscles in his throat working as he fought whatever war was raging inside him. When he looked at Talia, the hunger in his gaze was so raw it felt like a physical touch. One night, he finally growled. But she stays with me. Under my protection. Absolutely not, Castellan protested. The girl must be secured until the council. I will personally rip out your spine, Zarek interrupted conversationally, and use it to beat the rest of the council to death if you finish that sentence. She stays. With me, Kimberly sighed. Fine. But Zarek, no claiming. Not yet. Give us time to. I know the law, Kimberly. His voice was strained. I won't complete the bond. But she doesn't leave my sight. Talia wanted to protest, to tell them all that this was insane, that she wasn't worth a civil war, that they should just let her disappear back into the shadows where she belonged. But before she could speak, Zarek's hand closed around her wrist, not roughly, but with a possessiveness that made her heart stutter. Come, he said, his voice leaving no room for argument. And then he was pulling her through the ballroom, past the staring nobles and the whispering elites, past her half-sister Tina, who stood in the corner with her face white with shock, past the guards who immediately fell into step behind them. Talia stumbled in the borrowed heels, but Zarek's grip kept her upright. She could feel his hand trembling against her skin, the only sign that he wasn't as controlled as he appeared. Your Majesty, she whispered as they swept into a marble corridor. Please, I don't understand what's happening. I don't. You will. He didn't slow down. But not here. Not with their eyes on you. They climbed a spiraling staircase, higher and higher, until Talia's legs burned and her lungs ached. Finally, Zarek pushed open a set of massive wooden doors and pulled her inside. The room took her breath away. It was a tower chamber, circular and vast, with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the entire kingdom. The moon hung full and heavy in the sky, bathing everything in silver light. In the center of the room was a fireplace large enough to stand in, flames already crackling. Bookshelves lined the walls, and thick furs covered the floor. It was beautiful, intimate, dangerous. Zarek released her wrist and stalked toward the windows, his back to her. His shoulders were rigid, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. Do you know, he said quietly, what it's like to be soul empty for 200 years? Talia didn't answer. Couldn't. It's like drowning, Zarek continued. Slowly. Every day, the wolf inside you gets hungrier, angrier, more desperate to find the other half of your soul. And every day, you suffocate a little more because you know that half might not exist. He turned to face her, and the look in his eyes made her chest ache. I've killed for this kingdom, he said. I've bled for it. I've sacrificed everything, my family, my happiness, my humanity, to keep it strong. And in return, I got 2 centuries of emptiness. 2 centuries of watching other wolves find their mates while I slowly lost my mind. Your Majesty. Zarek, he interrupted. When we're alone, you call me Zarek. The intimacy of the command sent heat flooding through her veins. Zarek, she whispered. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry that I'm not what you need. I'm not strong enough to be. You're everything. He crossed the distance between them in 2 strides, his hands cupping her face with a gentleness that contradicted his lethal reputation. The moment I scented you, my wolf settled. For the first time in 200 years, the madness stopped screaming. Do you understand? You didn't just call to me, Talia. You saved me. Tears burned in her eyes. But I'll destroy you. The council will never accept. I don't care about the council. You should. The words burst out of her. You're a king. You have responsibilities. People who depend on you. And I'm nobody. I don't even have a wolf. How can I possibly be your? She stopped, the word catching in her throat. Mate. Zarek's thumb brushed across her cheekbone, wiping away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. Can you feel it? He asked softly. Even without your wolf, can you feel the pull between us? Talia wanted to lie, wanted to deny it, but she couldn't. Because yes, God help her, yes, she felt it. That inexplicable warmth in her chest whenever he was near. The way her body leaned toward his like a compass finding north. The terrible, beautiful certainty that this man, this dangerous, powerful, impossible man, was somehow meant to be hers. I feel it, she whispered. Zarek's eyes flashed gold. Then that's all that matters. But the law can be changed. The council can be replaced. The kingdom will learn, Zarek said, his voice dropping to a growl, that I don't negotiate when it comes to my mate. And then, before Talia could protest, before she could think, before she could remember all the reasons this was impossible, Zarek Vane leaned down and kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't careful. It was desperate and claiming and searing, like he was trying to brand her soul with his own. His hands tangled in her hair, pulling her closer, and Talia's gasp gave him the opening to deepen the kiss until she was drowning in him, in his taste, his scent, his overwhelming presence. When he finally pulled back, they were both breathing hard. Mine, Zarek whispered against her lips. Say it. Talia knew she shouldn't. Knew that saying those words would seal her fate, would drag her into a war she couldn't win. But looking into his burning gold eyes, feeling the bond thrumming between them like a living thing. Yours, she breathed. And somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled. Talia woke to the smell of pine and smoke, and for one blissful moment, she forgot where she was. Then she felt the weight of an arm draped across her waist, the heat of a body pressed against her back, and the steady rhythm of breathing that wasn't her own. Her eyes flew open. She was in Zarek's bed, still wearing the emerald gown, now wrinkled and uncomfortable, but definitely in his bed. The massive four-poster was draped in dark furs, and through the windows, she could see the first rays of dawn painting the sky pink and gold. And Zarek, the Alpha King, the most dangerous shifter alive, was wrapped around her like she might disappear if he let go. You're awake, his voice rumbled against her ear, rough with sleep. Talia's heart kicked into overdrive. We didn't, did we? No. There was amusement in his tone. I'm many things, Talia, but I don't claim my mate while she's unconscious from exhaustion. He shifted, propping himself up on one elbow to look down at her. Though watching you fall asleep mid-sentence last night was endearing. Heat flooded her cheeks. She vaguely remembered him talking to her about the kingdom, about his plans, his voice a low rumble that had made her eyelids heavy. She must have passed out right there in his reading chair. You carried me to bed, she whispered. Of course I did. He said it like it was the most natural thing in the world. Where else would you sleep? The servants' quarters? A guest room? Literally anywhere that wouldn't start rumors about. Let them talk. Zarek's hand came up to brush a strand of hair from her face, the gesture so tender it made her throat tight. By tonight, the entire kingdom will know you're mine. The reminder of reality crashed over her like cold water. The council. The law. The impossible choice Zarek was being forced to make. What happens now? She asked quietly. Zarek's expression darkened. Now, I meet with the council and listen to them tell me all the reasons I can't keep you. His thumb traced the line of her jaw. And then I tell them exactly where they can shove their objections. Zarek. A sharp knock at the door interrupted her. Zarek growled, a sound that was pure wolf, but called out, enter. Kimberly swept in, her silver hair immaculate despite the early hour. Her gaze flicked to the bed, to Talia still tangled in the furs with Zarek hovering over her and one elegant eyebrow arched. Good morning, she said dryly. I trust you both slept well? What do you want, Kimberly? Zarek didn't move from his position. The council has convened. They're waiting for you in the throne room. Kimberly's expression turned serious. Castellan has been busy. He's gathered support from the outer territories. Lord Varen brought his personal guard. This isn't just a council meeting anymore, Zarek. It's a trial. Talia's stomach dropped. A trial? For what? Kimberly's gaze softened when she looked at her. For you, dear. They're invoking the purge law. They want to determine whether you're truly the king's mate or simply a half-wolf, using dark magic to ensnare him. That's insane, Zarek snarled, sitting up fully. I know my own mate. Do you? Kimberly challenged. How can you be certain when the bond hasn't been completed? when her scent was artificially amplified by bloodthorn, when she has no wolf to even feel the bond. Because I know, Zarek bit out. Then prove it. Kimberly crossed her arms. Come to the trial. Let them test her. Let them see that the bond is real. Test her how? Talia asked, fear creeping into her voice. Kimberly hesitated. There's an ancient ritual. The mate's trial. It's not pleasant. Absolutely not, Zarek said immediately. It's the only way, Kimberly insisted. If Talia passes the trial, the council has to accept the bond. It's law. Even Castellan can't argue with it. What does the trial involve? Talia forced herself to ask. 3 challenges, Kimberly said. First, the scent recognition. You must identify Zarek's scent among 100 others while blindfolded. Second, the bond test. You must withstand separation from him while the council observes whether the bond causes you pain. And third, she paused. The wolf's call. You must summon your wolf in front of the council. Silence filled the room. She doesn't have a wolf, Zarek said flatly. Then she fails the trial, Kimberly said quietly. And the purge law stands. Talia felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. What does the purge law say exactly? Kimberly's expression turned grim. That any half-wolf found guilty of using dark magic to seduce or manipulate a pureblood, especially royalty, is to be executed by silver and fire. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. No, Zarek said, his voice deadly calm. That's not happening. Then you have 2 choices, Kimberly said. Let her take the trial and pray to the moon goddess that she somehow passes. Or abdicate your throne, reject the bond, and let her go. I'm not rejecting her. Then she has to take the trial. Kimberly turned to Talia. Can you do it? Can you pass? Talia's mind raced. The first challenge, scent recognition. Maybe she could manage. Zarek's scent was burned into her memory now, pine and smoke, and something wild and uniquely his. The second challenge, bond separation, terrified her, but she could endure pain. She'd endured worse. But the third challenge. How could she summon a wolf that didn't exist? I'll do it, she heard herself say. Talia, no, Zarek grabbed her hand. I have to. She met his burning gaze. If I don't, they'll use the purge law anyway. At least this way, I have a chance. You don't understand, Zarek said roughly. The bond test, the separation, it's not just pain. If the bond is real and we're forced apart before it's completed, it could break you. Your mind, your body. I'm stronger than I look, Talia said, trying to sound braver than she felt. And the wolf's call? Kimberly pressed. How will you summon a wolf you don't have? Talia had no answer for that. Zarek stood, pulling her up with him. Then we don't let it get that far. I'll end the trial before the third challenge. You can't interfere, Kimberly warned. The moment you do, you forfeit the trial. And the purge law becomes absolute. I don't care. Zarek. Talia placed her hand on his chest, feeling his heart pounding beneath her palm. Let me try. Please. I need to do this. For a long moment, he just stared at her, his jaw clenched so tight she could see the muscle ticking. Then, finally, he nodded. Fine, he growled. But if they hurt you, if they push you too far, I'm ending it. Kingdom be damned. Kimberly sighed. Get dressed. Both of you. The council is waiting. As Kimberly left, Zarek pulled Talia close, his forehead resting against hers. I won't let them take you from me, he whispered fiercely. Whatever happens in that trial, I won't lose you. Talia wished she could promise him the same. But deep in her chest, where her wolf should have been, there was only silence. The throne room had been transformed into an arena. Talia stood in the center of a massive silver circle etched into the marble floor, her hands trembling despite her best efforts to appear calm. Around her, the council sat in a semicircle of ornate chairs, their faces ranging from hostile to coldly curious. Behind them, what looked like half the kingdom's nobility had gathered to witness her humiliation or her execution. Zarek stood to her right, just outside the circle, his entire body coiled like a spring ready to snap. She could feel his eyes on her, burning with barely restrained fury. "Let us begin," Lord Castellan announced, rising from his seat. He looked far too pleased with himself. The first challenge, scent recognition. A servant approached carrying a black silk blindfold. Talia's heart hammered as the fabric was tied over her eyes, plunging her into darkness. "Before you are 100 vials," Castellan's voice echoed through the chamber. "Each contains the scent of a different wolf. You must identify which one belongs to your supposed mate. You have 3 attempts. Fail, and the trial ends." Talia heard the sound of glass clinking, felt someone guide her hand to a table she hadn't seen. Her fingers brushed against smooth vials, dozens of them. "Focus," she told herself. "You know his scent. You know him." She picked up the first vial, uncorked it, and inhaled. Cedar and rain. Strong. Dominant. But not him. She set it down, moved to another. Jasmine and steel. Female. Powerful. Another. Smoke and leather. Close. Her heart stuttered, but missing that wild undertone that made her pulse race. She could hear whispers from the crowd, feel their judgment pressing down on her like a physical weight. "Where are you?" she thought desperately, her fingers flying over the vials. "Where?" And then she found it. Pine and smoke and something ancient and wild that made every cell in her body sing with recognition. Her hand closed around the vial, and even through the glass, she could feel the warmth of it. "This one," she said, her voice steady. The blindfold was removed. Castellan's face had gone tight with displeasure. "Correct," he bit out. First challenge passed. Relief flooded through her, but it was short-lived. Second challenge, Castellan continued. The bond test. 2 guards stepped forward, and Talia's stomach lurched as she realized what was about to happen. "No," Zarek growled, moving toward the circle. "You cannot interfere, Your Majesty," Lady Sinclair said sharply. "You know the law." Zarek. Talia caught his eye, trying to convey a confidence she didn't feel. "I can do this." His jaw clenched, but he stopped. The guards moved to either side of Talia. One of them pulled out a pair of silver manacles, enchanted, she realized, seeing the runes etched into the metal. The other produced a vial of clear liquid. "Wolfsbane extract," Castellan explained. "It will suppress any connection to your wolf, or in your case, any magical influence that might be creating a false bond." He smiled coldly. "If the bond is real, the separation from your mate will cause you physical pain. If it's false, you'll feel nothing." Talia's mouth went dry. The guard snapped the manacles around her wrists, and immediately, a cold numbness spread up her arms. Then they forced the wolfsbane between her lips, and the world tilted. "Take her to the far side of the chamber," Castellan ordered. The guards dragged her away from Zarek, and with every step, something inside her chest began to scream. It started as a dull ache, then a sharp pull, like a rope tied around her ribs, stretching taut. By the time they reached the opposite wall, 50 feet from where Zarek stood, Talia was fighting not to cry out. "Describe what you feel," Castellan demanded. "Pain," she gasped. "Like something's tearing inside me." "Where?" "My chest. My heart." It feels like she couldn't finish. The pain was intensifying, spreading through her veins like acid. Across the room, Zarek's hands had shifted into claws. His eyes were pure gold, his wolf so close to the surface that she could see it rippling beneath his skin. "Enough," he snarled. "Not yet," Castellan said. "Take her farther." "To the corridor." "No," Zarek roared. "I said enough." But the guards were already dragging her toward the doors. The moment she crossed the threshold, leaving Zarek's line of sight, the pain exploded. Talia screamed. It felt like every bone in her body was breaking, like her soul was being ripped apart. She collapsed, and distantly, she heard Zarek's roar of rage, heard something crash. And then, through the agony, She felt it. A pulse. Deep inside her chest, where there had only ever been silence. A heartbeat that wasn't her own. What? The pulse came again, stronger. And with it, a voice. Not words, exactly. More like a feeling. A presence that had been sleeping so deep she'd never known it was there. Wake up, it seemed to whisper. Wake up, little wolf. He needs you. Impossible, she heard someone breathe. Talia's eyes flew open and realized she was glowing. A silver light was emanating from her skin, pulsing in time with that strange new heartbeat. And her eyes, she could see her reflection in a nearby shield, were no longer brown. They were silver. Pure, gleaming silver. The guards stumbled back in shock. What is she? One of them whispered. The doors burst open. Zarek stormed through, his wolf fully present now, his entire body radiating lethal intent. But he stopped short when he saw her. Talia, he breathed. The silver light intensified, and Talia felt something inside her shift. Not a wolf rising, not exactly. Something older, deeper. She looked down at her hands and gasped. The silver manacles were cracking, the enchanted metal splintering like glass against whatever power was waking inside her. That's not possible, Castellan said, his voice shaking. She's a half-wolf. She can't. She's not a half-wolf, Kimberly's voice cut through the chaos. The woman had gone pale, her eyes wide with something that looked like recognition. Moon's mercy. She's not half-human at all. Everyone turned to stare at her. Then what is she? Lady Sinclair demanded. Kimberly's gaze locked on Talia, and there was awe in her expression now. Fear. Reverence. She's a moonborn, Kimberly whispered. The first one in 300 years. The room exploded into chaos. Talia didn't understand. Didn't know what that meant. But Zarek was staring at her like she'd just rewritten everything he thought he knew about the world. A moonborn, he repeated slowly. But that would mean... Her mother wasn't human, Kimberly said. She was a wolf goddess. And her father, she turned to look at someone in the crowd. At Reuben Zachary, Talia's father, whose face had gone deathly white. Her father has been lying about her heritage for 18 years. No, Reuben stammered. That's not, she's just a half-wolf, I swear. You swore to the moon goddess you'd keep her hidden, Kimberly said coldly. You were supposed to protect her until her power awakened. Instead, you treated her like a servant and let her believe she was worthless. Talia's world was spinning. I don't understand. What's a moonborn? Zarek was suddenly there, his hands cupping her face, his eyes searching hers. It means you're not weak, love. You never were. His voice was rough with emotion. Moonborns are children of the goddess herself. They're born dormant, hiding among regular wolves until their mate awakens their power. Which is why, Kimberly added, no other wolf could ever scent her properly. She was waiting for him. For her true mate. For the one strong enough to wake the goddess inside her. Talia looked at Zarek, and the bond between them, the one she'd barely been able to feel before, was suddenly blazing like the sun. The third challenge, Castellan said weakly. The wolf's call. Is unnecessary, Kimberly interrupted. A moonborn's wolf is pure divine power. She doesn't need to shift to prove what she is. The silver light around Talia pulsed once more, then slowly faded. But she could still feel it, that presence inside her, awake now alive. Zarek pulled her against his chest, and she felt him shaking. Mine, he whispered into her hair. My mate. My moonborn. Mine. Yours, Talia agreed, the word feeling like a vow. But across the room, Lord Castellan's expression had turned calculating. And Talia realized with a sinking feeling that this revelation hadn't saved her. It had only made her more dangerous. The celebration lasted exactly 4 minutes. Then Lord Castellan rose from his seat, his face carved from stone, and said the words that shattered everything. This changes nothing. Zarek's head snapped toward him, a growl rumbling in his chest. What did you say? I said, Castellan repeated, his voice carrying through the suddenly silent chamber. This changes nothing. If anything, it makes the situation far worse. Worse. Kimberly stepped forward, her eyes flashing. The girl is moonborn, blessed by the goddess herself. How could that possibly? Because moonborns are forbidden from taking the throne, Castellan interrupted. He pulled a weathered tome from beneath his robes, slamming it onto the table before him. The Covenant of Ancients. Written 300 years ago after the last moonborn nearly destroyed the kingdom with her power. Talia felt ice spread through her veins. Castellan flipped open the book, his finger stabbing at a passage. It is hereby decreed that no child born of divine blood shall sit upon the throne of Valerius, for their power answers to the moon goddess alone, not to the laws of wolves or men. Should a moonborn attempt to claim the crown, they shall be bound in silver and returned to the goddess from whence they came. That's an execution order, Lady Sinclair breathed. Exactly. Castellan's smile was razor-sharp. The law is clear. She cannot be queen. And if the king insists on claiming her as his mate, he must abdicate his throne or watch her die. You bastard, Zarek snarled, lunging forward. Guards materialized between them, their weapons drawn. Not to protect Castellan from Zarek, but to protect Talia from everyone. Silver-tipped spears surrounded her in a cage of gleaming metal. Zarek. Talia cried out as more guards grabbed him, 4 of them struggling to hold him back as his wolf raged. Let her go, Zarek roared, his voice barely human. Let her go now, or I will tear this entire building down. Do that, Castellan said calmly, and she dies. The Covenant is bound by blood magic, Your Majesty. The moment you attempt to place a moonborn on the throne, the curse activates. Her heart will stop beating. He paused. Unless, of course, you choose to step down. The room fell into a suffocating silence. Talia watched Zarek's face cycle through rage, desperation, and finally, heartbreakingly, defeat. Fine, he said hoarsely. Fine. I'll abdicate. I'll give up the throne. Just let her. No, Kimberly cut in sharply. You can't. Zarek turned to her, his eyes wild. I don't care about the throne, Kimberly. I care about her. If you abdicate, the kingdom falls to Lord Varen as the next in the bloodline, Kimberly said urgently. And Varen has already pledged his support to Castellan. They'll reinstate the purge law the moment you step down. They'll execute her anyway and claim it was to cleanse the kingdom of divine interference. Lord Varen, a thick-necked brute with cruel eyes, smiled from his seat. The council must think of the greater good, Your Majesty. We cannot allow the goddess to interfere with wolf business. It sets a dangerous precedent. You planned this, Zarek breathed, realization dawning. This entire trial, the challenges, the revelation, you wanted us to discover she was moonborn. We suspected, Castellan admitted. The way your wolf responded to her, the intensity of the bond despite her supposed lack of power, it pointed to something more. We simply needed proof before we could invoke the Covenant. So either way, she dies, Zarek said flatly. Unless she renounces the bond, Lady Sinclair offered, though she didn't sound hopeful. If she rejects you publicly and returns to her father's house, the Covenant doesn't apply. She wouldn't be attempting to claim the throne. Talia's heart clenched. And what happens to Zarek? He finds another mate, Castellan said dismissively. Eventually. No. Zarek's voice was absolute. She's mine. There is no other mate. There will never be. Then you have a choice to make, Your Majesty, Castellan said. Your mate or your kingdom. You cannot have both. The words hung in the air like a blade. Talia looked at Zarek, at this powerful, ancient king who had waited 200 years for her, and saw his heart breaking in real time. Zarek, she said softly. Let me go. His head whipped toward her. Never. You have to. Tears burned in her eyes. The kingdom needs you. Your people need you. You're everything, he said fiercely. You're my mate, my salvation, my... And you're a king, she interrupted, her voice cracking. You have a responsibility. A duty. I won't let you throw that away for someone you just met. I don't care how long I've known you, Zarek said roughly. The moment I scented you, my soul recognized yours. You think I can just walk away from that? You think I can just let you die? One of us has to, Talia whispered. Kimberly stepped between them, her expression stricken. There might be another way. Everyone turned to her. The covenant forbids a moonborn from taking the throne, Kimberly said carefully. But it says nothing about a moonborn who has been bound. Bound how? Zarek demanded. Silver binding, Kimberly said reluctantly. It's an ancient ritual. Silver chains inscribed with suppression runes could lock away her divine power permanently. She'd become mortal. Fully wolf, no goddess blood. Hope flared in Zarek's eyes. Then do it. Bind her. No, Talia said immediately. Zarek, you can't ask me to. I'm not asking, he said desperately. I'm begging. Please, Talia. Let them bind your power. It's the only way I don't lose you. But I'd lose myself, Talia said, her hand going to her chest where that new presence, her awakened wolf, her divine power, pulsed with life. This power, it's mine. It's who I really am. I just found it. How can you ask me to give it up? Because I love you, Zarek said, and the raw honesty in his voice shattered her. Because I would rather have you mortal and alive than divine and dead. Please. Talia's tears spilled over. Behind them, Castellan cleared his throat. The binding ritual requires the moonborn's consent. Does she agree? Talia looked at Zarek. At the man who had seen her when she was invisible, who had claimed her when she was worthless, who was willing to sacrifice everything for her. Could she do the same for him? She started. The doors burst open. Reuben Zachary, Talia's father, stumbled in, his face ashen, blood dripping from a wound on his temple. Stop, he gasped. Stop the binding. She can't, you don't understand. Father. Talia breathed. I'm sorry, Reuben said, collapsing to his knees. I'm so sorry, Talia. I should have told you years ago. Your mother, she wasn't just any goddess. She was Viola, the moon goddess herself. The room went deathly silent. That makes you, Reuben continued, his voice breaking, not just moonborn. You're the goddess's only daughter. Her heir. And if you let them bind your power, if you become mortal, the goddess's protection over this kingdom dies with it. What protection? Kimberly demanded. The eternal pact, Reuben whispered. 300 years ago, Viola promised to shield Valerius from the shadow beasts beyond the borders. But only as long as her bloodline remained divine and unbound. If Talia loses her power, he looked up, his eyes haunted. The barriers fall. And the beasts will devour everything. Castellan had gone white. That's impossible. The shadow beasts are a myth. A howl split the night. Not a wolf's howl. Something deeper. Darker. Wrong. Talia ran to the window and felt her blood turn to ice. On the horizon, the sky was turning black. And rising from that darkness were shapes massive, twisted things with too many limbs and eyes that glowed red as blood. The shadow beasts. And they were coming. Chaos erupted in the throne room. Nobles screamed and scrambled for the exits. Guards rushed to the windows, their faces draining of color as they saw the shadow beasts advancing like a tide of darkness across the land. The creatures moved with unnatural speed, their twisted forms leaving scorched earth in their wake. How long until they reached the capital? Zarek barked at his captain of the guard. An hour, Your Majesty. Maybe less. Evacuate the city. Get the civilians to the underground shelters. Mobilize every available soldier. It won't be enough, Reuben interrupted, still on his knees. Nothing will stop them except divine power. Viola's power. His eyes found Talia's. Your power. Talia's hand went to her chest, feeling the divine presence pulsing inside her, stronger now, as if responding to the threat. But I don't know how to use it. I just discovered it exists an hour ago. You don't have to know, Reuben said urgently. The power knows. Your mother's blood knows. You just have to let it out. And if I do? Talia asked, her voice shaking. If I use this power, the covenant forbids you from taking the throne, yes, Kimberly finished. She looked at Zarek. You understand what this means? If she saves the kingdom, she can never be your queen. The law will stand. Zarek's jaw clenched so hard Talia heard his teeth crack. For a long moment, he said nothing, just stared out the window at the approaching darkness. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. Then she won't be my queen. He turned to Talia, and the look in his eyes made her heart break and soar at the same time. She'll be my mate. My love. My everything. I don't need her on a throne to know what she's worth. Zarek, Talia started. No. He crossed to her in 3 strides, cupping her face in his hands. Listen to me. I spent 200 years as a king without a heart. I'm not spending another day with a crown, but without you. His thumbs brushed away her tears. Save the kingdom, Talia. Use your power. And then we'll figure out the rest together. But you'd have to abdicate, she whispered. You'd lose everything. I'd lose nothing, he said fiercely. Because I'd have you. The kingdom needs you. You can't just. The kingdom needs a leader, Kimberly interjected. It doesn't have to be a king. She stepped forward, her expression determined. The council can rule in Zarek's stead. I'll take the regent's seat. We'll maintain order, keep the laws. Under Castellan's influence? Zarek challenged. He'll reinstate the purge law the moment I step down. Not if we don't let him, Lady Sinclair said, surprising everyone. The woman stood, her face grave. I've watched Castellan manipulate this council for decades. I'm tired of it. If you abdicate, Your Majesty, I'll support Kimberly as regent. And I'll personally ensure that any attempt to harm your mate is met with treason charges. As will I, Lord James added, standing as well. The girl just discovered she's our only defense against annihilation. Only a fool would execute her now. One by one, other council members rose. Not all of them, Castellan and Varen, remained seated, their faces twisted with rage. But enough. Enough to form a new majority. Castellan slammed his fist on the table. This is treason. You're allowing a Moonborn to save our lives. Kimberly cut him off coldly. Which is more than you've ever done, Castellan. Sit down and be silent, or I'll have you removed from this chamber. For a moment, Talia thought Castellan would refuse. But then he saw the guards moving toward him, saw the shift in power, and slowly sank back into his seat. The barriers are falling faster, a guard called from the window. The beasts are inside the outer territories. Talia felt the divine power inside her surge in response, like it was angry that these creatures dared threaten her father's kingdom. Her mother's kingdom. Her kingdom. How do I do this? She asked Reuben. How do I stop them? Go to the highest point in the palace, Reuben said. The Moon Tower. It's where your mother used to stand when she renewed the barriers. The divine power responds to height, to being closer to the moon. Talia nodded, then turned to Zarek. Come with me. Always, he said without hesitation. They ran. Through corridors and up spiral staircases, Zarek's hand never leaving hers. Behind them, she could hear Kimberly shouting orders, organizing the defense, preparing for the worst. But Talia blocked it out, focusing only on the power building inside her chest, growing hotter and brighter with every step. By the time they burst onto the Moon Tower's platform, a circular stone deck opened to the night sky, Talia was glowing again. Silver light poured from her skin, so bright it hurt to look at. The moon hung full and massive above them, and Talia felt her mother's presence in it. Not words. Just a feeling. A warmth. An encouragement. You were made for this, my daughter. You are my legacy. My love. My light. Below, the shadow beasts had reached the city walls. She could hear screaming, the clash of steel, the roar of wolves shifting to fight an enemy they couldn't defeat. Talia, Zarek said urgently. Whatever you're going to do. I need you to let me go, she interrupted. His hand tightened on hers. What? To channel the full power, I have to break contact with everything mortal, including you. She looked up at him, memorizing every feature. I need you to step back. And Zarek, no matter what happens, no matter what you see, don't touch me until it's over. The divine energy could kill you. I don't care. I do. She pressed her hand to his chest, feeling his heart pounding beneath her palm. I need you alive. I need you waiting for me when this is done. Promise me. For a moment, she thought he'd refuse. But then he nodded, his throat working. I promise. He stepped back, and the moment his hand left hers, the power exploded. Silver light erupted from Talia like a supernova, shooting into the sky in a pillar of pure divine energy. She felt herself lifted off the ground, felt her consciousness expanding outward, touching every corner of the kingdom at once. She could feel the shadow beasts like wounds in reality. Dark, hungry, wrong. And she could feel the barriers her mother had placed, weakened now, fraying, but still there. Still holding. I can fix this, Talia thought. I can make them stronger. I can. No, her mother's voice whispered in her mind. Not fix, my darling. Replace. The old barriers were mine. The new ones must be yours. I don't know how. Yes, you do. You've always known. It's in your blood. In your soul. Talia closed her eyes and pushed. The silver light shot outward in a wave, racing across the kingdom faster than thought. Everywhere it touched, the shadow beasts screamed. Their twisted forms dissolved like smoke in sunlight, burned away by divine fire. And in the light's wake, new barriers rose. Not invisible walls like her mother's had been, but shimmering curtains of silver that stretched from earth to sky, beautiful and terrible and absolutely impenetrable. The shadow beasts that remained outside the barriers threw themselves against the light and shattered. The ones inside turned to ash. And then silence. Talia hung in the air for one more heartbeat, feeling the new barriers settle into place, permanent and unbreakable. Then the power released her and she fell. Strong arms caught her before she hit the stone. I've got you, Zarek whispered, cradling her against his chest. I've got you, love. You did it. You saved us all. Talia managed a weak smile. Did I look cool? Please tell me I looked cool. Zarek's laugh was shaky with relief. You looked like a goddess. Good, she murmured. Because I feel like I just fought 100 shadow beasts with my bare hands. Rest, he said, pressing a kiss to her forehead. The kingdom is safe. The barriers will hold. You can rest now. But as Talia's eyes drifted closed, she felt something shift inside her. The divine power wasn't gone, it was still there, still part of her. But it was different now. Settled. Hers. And with it came a certainty. She'd just rewritten the rules. Talia woke in Zarek's arms, wrapped in furs before a roaring fire. For a moment, everything was peaceful. She could hear his steady heartbeat beneath her ear, feel his fingers gently stroking through her hair, smell the pine and smoke scent that meant safety. Home. Then the memories crashed back. The shadow beasts. The barriers. The power. She sat up too quickly, and the room spun. Easy, Zarek murmured, studying her. You've been unconscious for 6 hours. Your body needs time too. 6 hours. Talia's eyes widened. The council, Castellan, what happened while I was, is currently locked in the dungeons awaiting trial for treason, a familiar voice said. Kimberly swept into the room, looking surprisingly satisfied for someone who'd just lived through an apocalypse. Behind her came Lady Sinclair, Lord James, and, surprisingly, Reuben Zachary, though her father hung back, his expression uncertain. Treason? Talia repeated. He attempted to rally the outer territories against you while you were saving their lives, Kimberly explained. Called you an abomination, claimed you'd summoned the shadow beasts yourself to seize power. Lord Varen backed him up. She smiled grimly. The soldiers who'd just watched you disintegrate the monsters with divine light didn't take kindly to that. Neither did most of the council. So he's finished? Talia could hardly believe it. Completely, Lady Sinclair confirmed. Along with anyone foolish enough to support him. The council has been restructured. New members appointed. And we've reached a unanimous decision regarding your future. Talia's stomach dropped. What decision? Lord James stepped forward, his ancient face kind. We cannot change the covenant. The law forbidding a moonborn from taking the throne still stands. It's bound by blood magic older than any of us. But, he paused, we can change how we interpret it. I don't understand, Talia said. The covenant forbids a moonborn from sitting on the throne as queen, Kimberly explained. But it says nothing about a moonborn serving as the kingdom's divine protector. A separate position. Equal to the crown in honor, answerable to no one but the goddess herself. Zarek's arms tightened around Talia. What are you saying? We're saying, Lady Sinclair said, that Talia doesn't need to be queen to stand beside you, your majesty. She can be something more. The Moon Guardian. Keeper of the barriers. Divine protector of Valerius. She paused. And your acknowledged mate. The people already see her as their savior, Lord James added. They're calling her the Silver Light. The goddess's daughter. Let her be that. Let her hold a position that honors what she is rather than trying to force her into a role the ancient laws won't allow. Talia's heart was pounding. And Zarek? He stays as king. If he wishes, Kimberly said. Though he did technically declare his abdication before you destroyed the shadow beasts. Zarek made a dismissive sound. I said I would abdicate. I never signed anything. Semantics, Kimberly said dryly, but she was smiling. The council is willing to overlook the technicality. Especially since the kingdom needs stability right now. Having their warrior king and their divine protector working together seems ideal. It was too good to be true. Talia waited for the catch, for someone to point out why this couldn't work. Instead, Reuben stepped forward. There's something else you need to know, he said quietly, meeting Talia's eyes for the first time since she'd discovered the truth. About your mother. About why she chose me. Talia had been trying not to think about that. About the fact that the moon goddess herself had apparently fallen for a mediocre councilman who'd spent 18 years treating their daughter like a shameful secret. Viola came to me in a vision 20 years ago, Reuben said. She told me the shadow beasts would return when the current barriers weakened. That she needed to create a successor, someone who could renew the protection when she no longer could. His voice cracked. She needed a vessel. Someone willing to raise her child in secret, to hide her divine nature until the time was right. So you agreed, Talia said flatly. And then spent my entire life making me feel worthless? I was afraid, Reuben said desperately. Viola warned me that if anyone discovered what you were before your power awakened, you'd be killed. The only way to keep you safe was to make you invisible. To treat you like you were nothing so no one would look too closely. Tears streamed down his face. I thought I was protecting you. Instead, I nearly destroyed you. I am so sorry. Talia didn't know what to feel. Anger. Grief. Understanding. It was all tangled together in her chest. You should have told me, she said finally. You should have trusted me with the truth. I know. Reuben dropped to his knees. I failed you as a father. I failed Viola's trust. All I can do now is beg your forgiveness and spend the rest of my life trying to make amends. Zarek growled softly. If you think. It's okay, Talia interrupted, placing a hand on his chest. She looked at Reuben. This man who'd been a stranger wearing her father's face for so long. I forgive you. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. You'll have to earn back my trust. Reuben nodded, relief and shame warring on his features. I will. I swear it. Good. Talia turned back to the council. So I become the Moon Guardian. Zarek stays king. We rule together, but separately. And the covenant is satisfied because I'm not technically on the throne. Exactly, Kimberly confirmed. And we can complete the mate bond? Zarek asked, his voice rough. Without legal consequences? The bond is between you and her, Lord James said. The kingdom has no say in it. Complete it with our blessing. Talia felt something loosen in her chest. Something that had been tight with fear since this whole nightmare began. There's one more thing, Lady Sinclair said. We need a formal ceremony. To acknowledge your new role. To show the people that you're not a threat but their guardian. She smiled. We're calling it the Coronation of Light. 3 days from now, in the Grand Cathedral. A coronation, Talia repeated weakly. For someone who's not becoming queen. For someone who became something better, Kimberly corrected. After they left, Talia sagged against Zarek, suddenly exhausted again. This is insane, she muttered. 3 days ago, I was a servant. Now I'm a divine protector with a coronation. 3 days ago, I was a king slowly going feral, Zarek countered. Now I'm a man who gets to keep his mate and his kingdom. He tilted her chin up. I'll take insane if it means I get you. You really want this? Talia searched his face. I know it's not what you imagined. I can't be your queen. I can't give you the traditional royal partnership. I don't want traditional, Zarek said fiercely. I want you. Exactly as you are. Divine power, goddess blood, terrible self-esteem, and all. Hey, Talia protested weakly. It's true. He kissed her forehead. You still don't see yourself the way I see you. The way the kingdom sees you now. But you will. I'll spend every day reminding you until you believe it. Talia's throat tightened. I love you. I don't think I've actually said that yet. But I do. I love you so much it terrifies me. Good, Zarek said, his smile wolfish. Because I'm never letting you go. He kissed her then, deep and claiming and full of promise. And Talia felt the bond between them sing, stronger than ever, ready to be completed. Ready for forever. The Grand Cathedral had never looked more beautiful. Silver banners hung from every column, shimmering in the candlelight like captured moonbeams. Flowers in shades of white and pale blue filled every corner, their sweet scent mixing with incense and magic. And overhead, through the cathedral's crystal dome, the full moon blazed so brightly it seemed to be watching the ceremony personally. Maybe it was. Talia stood in the preparation chamber, staring at her reflection and barely recognizing the woman looking back. The gown was breathtaking, white silk that seemed to glow from within, embroidered with silver thread and patterns that matched the divine barriers she'd created. Her dark hair had been left mostly loose, falling in waves down her back, with only a few braids woven with moonstones. And on her brow sat a circlet of pure silver, delicate as starlight, marking her as the moon guardian. You look like your mother, Reuben said quietly from the doorway. Talia turned. Her father, and she was slowly learning to think of him that way again, looked older than she remembered. But there was genuine warmth in his eyes now. Genuine pride. Did you ever see her? Talia asked. Actually see her, I mean? Or was it only visions? Once, Reuben said, stepping closer. The night you were born. She appeared in our bedroom, took you in her arms, and wept because she knew she couldn't stay. His voice roughened. She told me you would save the kingdom one day. That you would be stronger and braver than she ever was. I didn't believe her then. You were so tiny, so fragile. But she was right. She was always right. Talia's eyes burned with tears she refused to let fall. I wish I could have known her. She's with you, Reuben said. Every time you use your power, every time the moon shines on your face. She's there. He held out his arm. Now come. You have a kingdom waiting to meet their guardian. And a very impatient alpha king who's been pacing outside the cathedral for the last hour. Talia laughed despite her nerves and took his arm. The cathedral doors opened, and sound washed over her like a wave. Thousands of people packed the pews, filled the balconies, spilled out into the courtyard beyond. Nobles and servants side by side. Soldiers and scholars. Families who'd survived the shadow beast attack, their children's faces bright with wonder as they saw the woman who'd saved them. And at the end of the impossibly long aisle, standing before the altar, was Zarek. He wore formal black, his hair pulled back, his face carved from stone and starlight. But when his eyes found hers, they softened, blazed, filled with so much love that Talia forgot to breathe. "That's my mate," she thought, and the bond between them sang in recognition. The walk down the aisle felt like it took forever and no time at all. Every step brought her closer to her future, to the life she'd never dared to dream of. When she finally reached the altar, Reuben placed her hand in Zarek's. The Alpha King's fingers closed around hers, warm and sure, and Talia felt everything click into place. Kimberly stood before them in regent's robes, her expression solemn, but her eyes dancing. "People of Valerius," she called, her voice magically amplified to reach every corner of the cathedral. "We gather today to witness the birth of a new era. An era where divine and mortal stand together. Where strength is found not in bloodlines or tradition, but in courage, sacrifice, and love." The crowd murmured approval. "Talia Zachary," Kimberly continued, turning to her. "Daughter of Viola, keeper of the barriers, do you accept the responsibility of protecting this kingdom? Of standing as guardian between our people and the darkness beyond? Of wielding your divine power not for personal gain, but for the good of all?" "I do," Talia said, and her voice rang clear and strong. "Then kneel." Talia sank to her knees, and Kimberly placed both hands on the silver circlet. Divine light pulsed between them, warm and welcoming, and Talia felt her mother's presence stronger than ever. "Well done, my daughter. I am so proud of you." "Rise," Kimberly commanded. "Rise, moon guardian of Valerius, protector of the realm, blessed of Viola." Talia stood, and the entire cathedral erupted in cheers. But she only had eyes for Zarek, who was looking at her like she'd hung the moon herself. "There's one more ceremony," Kimberly said, her voice cutting through the noise. The crowd quieted. As is the right of every guardian, Talia may choose a champion. A partner to stand beside her in all things. A mate to share her burdens and her joys. This wasn't part of the official program. Talia glanced at Kimberly in surprise, but the woman just smiled and gestured for her to continue. Talia turned to Zarek, her heart full to bursting. "I choose you," she said simply. "I choose you, Zarek Vane. Not because you're a king or because the bond demands it, but because you saw me when I was invisible. Because you claimed me when I was worthless. Because you taught me that I was worth fighting for." Her voice broke. "I choose you because I love you. Today and always." Zarek's composure finally cracked. He pulled her into his arms, his forehead pressed to hers, and whispered, "And I choose you. My mate. My moon. My everything." "Then let the bond be completed," Kimberly declared. Zarek's eyes flashed gold. "Here? In front of everyone." "The first kiss," Kimberly clarified, rolling her eyes. "The rest you can do in private, you barbarian." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Zarek grinned, wild and beautiful and completely hers, and kissed her. The bond snapped into place like a key turning in a lock, and Talia felt it, the final connection, the complete merging of their souls. It was overwhelming and perfect and right in a way nothing else had ever been. When they finally broke apart, silver light was dancing around them both. The bond made visible. The mate mark appearing on their skin, a crescent moon intertwined with a wolf, exactly over their hearts. The crowd went wild. Months later, Talia stood on the moon tower, watching the sun set over Valerius. The silver barriers shimmered in the fading light, strong and beautiful. In the city below, she could hear children playing, merchants closing their shops, families gathering for dinner. Peace. Arms slid around her waist from behind, and Zarek's chin came to rest on her shoulder. "Kimberly wants to know if you're coming to the council meeting tomorrow. Something about establishing formal protocols for the Moon Guardian position." "More paperwork," Talia groaned. "I saved the kingdom from nightmare monsters, and somehow I still have to fill out forms." Zarek's laugh rumbled through her. Welcome to leadership, love. How do you stand it? I have an excellent distraction, he murmured, pressing a kiss to her neck. She's stubborn, powerful, and has a habit of glowing when she's annoyed. I do not, Talia started, then noticed the silver light emanating from her hands. Okay, fine. Maybe a little. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the stars appear one by one. Talia thought about everything that had changed. How 3 months ago she'd been a servant who thought she was nothing. And now she was a guardian, a mate, a woman who'd found not just her power, but her purpose. Do you ever regret it? She asked quietly. Choosing me over a simpler life? Every day, Zarek said solemnly. Talia's heart dropped until she felt him smile against her skin. I regret every day I lived before you, he continued. Every empty year. Every meaningless century. But the moment you walked into my life, his arms tightened. That's when I started living. So no, Talia. I regret nothing about choosing you. I'd make the same choice 1,000 times over, even though I'm terrible at council meetings. Especially because you told Lord James his tax proposal was aggressively boring to his face. Talia laughed. He needed to hear it. My fearless mate, Zarek said fondly. He turned her in his arms. I love you. Have I mentioned that today? Only 3 times. Then I'm behind schedule. He kissed her softly. I love you, Moon Guardian. My impossible, incredible, absolutely perfect mate. I love you too, Talia whispered against his lips. My king. My partner. My home. And as the moon rose full and bright above them, blessing the kingdom and the bond that had saved it, Talia knew with absolute certainty. This was exactly where she was meant to be. She had never meant to sit beside the Alpha King at the mating ceremony. But somehow, impossibly beautifully, she'd found her way to something better. She'd found her way home. Thank you so much for joining me on Talia and Zarek's journey. From invisible servant to divine guardian, from soul-empty king to devoted mate, they fought ancient laws, shadow beasts, and their own fears to find their happy ending. If you love this story, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Drop a comment below telling me your favorite moment. Was it the moment Zarek first scented Talia? The shadow beast battle? Or that final kiss at the coronation? And tell me, what story should I bring to life next? What title should I transform into an emotional, addictive romance for you? Until next time, my beautiful wolves, may you all find your impossible, perfect mate. Keep howling, keep loving, and keep believing in happily ever afters.